Hey guys, it's Otti again. I'm sitting here in an online call with two members of the band Artifacts. Hi, first of all.
Hello, good evening.
Hi. Uh, I've told you we know each other for a long time now, but people outside maybe don't know you. So maybe first of all, you can introduce yourselves, your names, and your part in the band.
Hello, my name is Nicholas. I am the vocalist in the band, and I'm also one of the founding members.
I'm Siegfried and a composer and keyboard player.
Yeah. And
he writes all the stuff, So.
I would say you're like a mastermind somehow for songwriting, I would say.
That's the correct word. He is the mastermind behind Artifacts. Yes, I'm just a monkey. So,
with a typewriter.
With a typewriter.
That handles social
media.
And
I do everything he doesn't do. So all the things that I don't want to do that. Yeah, you do that. Okay, fine. that's what I do.
Yeah, and I think it's no secret that we know each other, for example, from your former band, Lemuria.
Yes, we were in Lemuria together, I think, for 13 years.
Yeah.
From 2002 to about 2014. Well, that's 12 years. And then we quit. We left Lemuria and we formed Artifacts. It's taken a long time, but this is our first album, so we want to do things right, and when you do want to do things right, they take time, unfortunately. So yeah, that's
yeah, I remember
that's how long we've known each other, Otti.
I'm not sure, but it has to be at least 12 or 13 years, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think we met when we released the final album of Lemuria. I think that was in 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
And then I think, thanks to you, we played one show in Germany. Schlüsselloch in Aachen.
Aachen, yes.
Yes, yeah. We played there, thanks to you. And I think we've stayed in touch ever since. We've stayed in touch a bit, yeah.
Totally.
And so we've known each other for that long. So how long is that? About 13 years? 13, 14 years?
Yeah, something like this.
Not bad, huh?
Long time, yes. And I remember last time when I was at yours, it's still some years ago, we were thinking about how long, but I'm not sure, but 7 years maybe, or 6 years. And I remember that time you showed me some of the first works of Artifacts.
Yes.
So that was really impressive back then.
The Siegfried had already made actually the first versions, as it say, the embryonic versions,
more or less finished back at that time. We did continue writing, I think 1 or 2 songs written since. I think most of it was already there, written between 2014 and 2016. I think a lot of it.
Yeah. It was some of the songs, even one of the songs on the album, or 2 songs on the album.
Some of them are quite old. So,
yeah. I mean, old is just that's
old is an understatement.
Yeah.
So I think for those who've listened to our record, which is on Spotify now, by the way, the epilogue was actually from my students' days at the Royal Conservatory in Ghent. It was part of my master's project. So that was from 2007, I think, the initial composition, and of course we reworked some and added an amazing vocal solo to it in the studio. But that's the oldest song.
Actually, that vocal solo wasn't that just that was improvised, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an improvised addition in the song. So
that was amazing.
I think the other second oldest song.
What is now Tower? The Tower is Danshar.
That was from the final days
of Lemuria. When we were in Lemuria, yeah, that was one of the songs that Siegfried had written actually for Lemuria. And of course, when we split up, he took the song with him. So those 2 songs are the oldest songs on the album, composition wise.
And we'll talk about the album much more. But maybe we can first of all tell the people outside what the music is actually about, because I think we can say metal would be the easiest way.
That's the easiest way.
But I think you can describe it a little bit more. It's like cinematic and many more elements in it. So how would you describe it to someone who never heard of you?
I think cinematic is probably
A good way to
Yeah, a
describe
good way
it.
to describe it. Sort of, we're staying quite far away from the standard song structures and song lengths, and in
Yeah.
typical metal, it's more
More
typically like
straightforward. It's more straightforward, I think.
So the music is mainly driven by the story, so it's like 10 to 15 minute story arches put into music, more or less.
Yeah. It is very cinematic because I mean he writes the stuff, and you can very clearly hear his influences, and he's you're a very big fan of Hans Zimmer and John Williams and other
typical soundtrack composers.
Typical soundtrack composers, but still it's very there's a mosquito in my bedroom. They're very clear. I mean, if you have this information, you can tell, yes, here, this is Hans Zimmer, or this is John Williams. But also, of course, the big the first comparison people will make is, of course, the Burger is the big, one of the big influences that you drew from.
Probably that's also what helped me to do genre at the time. But I mean, there's actually quite a lot in there, a bit of a mix of everything. I used to be into more progressive stuff like Dream Theater in my 20s, and I think a lot of the
that sounds so old, man. That sounds so old.
And then recently, I didn't listen to it for like the past decade or so, but when I started listening to it again, I actually noticed quite an influence there. Also, I think in song structures and sort of the continuous compositions, working with recurring themes or variations of themes, like they also do in their rather elaborate compositions. So primarily the older Dream Theater material. Like scenes from a memory and so on. I think there's definitely a hint of that in there as well. Maybe that's also a little bit more of the progressive side in some of the tracks.
Yep.
Although the primary genre is, of course, still closer to black metal. From metal perspective.
The thing is, for people who want to know what kind of music we make, I always use this comparison, because if you start naming metal bands, if people aren't into metal, they won't know what you're talking about. So what I usually say is, I ask them if they've seen the movie Lord of the Rings, and usually they have. So so I say, imagine the music of Lord of the Rings, but with guitars and bass and metal vocals and drums and all that. So it is very cinematic and orchestral, because you start writing from the perspective of the orchestra, and then you have guitars and bass and drums, don't you? So usually I mean, I'm just going to generalize here. I think usually these bands, they start with guitar riffs, and then they maybe put an orchestral arrangement over that. But he does it. You do it the other way around, don't you? You start from the orchestra, and then you put the metal around it. So
that's often the case indeed. First, like figuring out essentially the melodies and the harmonies from an orchestral perspective, and then seeing how the guitars can actually contribute to that effect.
And that sometimes has a special.
It has a drawback, but also, I don't really play guitar, so I also do all the pre-production guitars. But that's like sometimes literally cutting and pasting individual notes or very short bits and pieces of the guitar track.
And then he presents the guitarist with riffs that are actually unplayable for actual guitarists. Is that here?
Or very difficult to play, because it's like there's no obvious way to actually
for the fingers.
For the fingers. So, but they managed to figure it out.
They did. Yeah.
It cost us a bit of time in the studio, probably, but
they made it their own. It all turns out fine. Everything turns out fine in the end.
Yeah.
So.
I know what you mean. I had some interview back a few weeks ago where they were talking about drums, for example, and the songwriter wasn't the drummer, and he always did parts where you would have to have some like being an octopus to play it, having 8 arms or something.
Same thing, yeah. That's it. You'd have to have about 6 or 7 fingers to play some of his riffs. The way he wrote them.
Yeah.
I think for the drums, probably the drummer that played the recording actually made it more complex than what was on the pre-production.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Yeah. He was a very good drummer. I mean, the drummer we have now, Jordan, he's excellent. He's excellent. But the drummer who recorded with us, Gert, he's actually the live drummer, or I don't know, permanent drummer maybe. I don't know. Am I allowed to say this for Vile, the American death metal band? He did really well. He made, Siegfried gave him the pre-production tracks, and he said, this is what I wrote. Do your own thing. And he made it into something completely, really spectacular. If you listen to the drums, I mean, there are so many aspects to the album, but if you no, I didn't get it. If you listen to the drums, especially, they really are, out there, and a high level of complexity and skill, and playmanship and musicianship. So yeah.
I know what you mean. And I think the whole concept has a big story behind it. So we will talk about this. But first of all, I have to ask, so when you have all those complex arrangements, all those complex compositions, are they first, or do you have the story in mind when you write this material?
It was a bit in parallel. Like I think the first few songs were there in like a very vague. I think because I think the outline of the story goes way back. I think even before 2014, had like an early draft of something that was along these lines of some of the let's say the main concepts in the universe behind the story. So there was something there already, but I think we had a couple of songs written down, and then sort of started making the puzzle of which song fits which part of the story, and then wrote the lyrics from that perspective, and then of course continued composing some from time to time, also specifically targeting specific sections of the story, essentially trying to capture very specific moments in that storyline. So it's a bit of a mix. It's not like one was entirely there before the other. I think they grew a bit in parallel, and especially within the addition of the vocals and also the choirs, became like one, let's say,
a whole.
Yeah.
A whole. Yeah. It all congeals. It all feels very. I mean, I can say this because I didn't write it. You wrote it. It all feels just very, very harmonious. It just feels like a whole. It doesn't feel like, oh yes, I started with this, and I'm just going to stick this in there, and I'm going to jam this in there, and oh yes, I want to add this. Oh yes, I'm going to stick this in there, and sort of, make something of it that wasn't intended to. It's just it's all very harmonious. It clicks,
Yeah. I think when I'm writing, also think in sort of atmospheres and let's say arches, which is very well suited to actually stick an elaborate story on top of that. If you have a very smooth musical arch that spans 3-4 minutes, you have quite a bit of time to explain something, and it's sort of, I don't know, it's just a way of structuring music, I think. Which also lends itself to these kinds of epic, this kind of epic storytelling.
I see. This epic story, even as I understood right, there's even a big universe around it now. So this universe, do you have some like written down what?
There's like
a background story.
Yeah, there's like a 50-60 page document. I think the story grew a bit out of control once we started writing out the story. The universe started growing, so I had to set some ground rules, give backstory to certain characters.
And he's very thorough. If
essentially, like the reason that this is part 2, because there was already that much backstory, and I had already decided where to start with this CD in the storyline, that I decided just for part 1 to be then sort of the entire backstory to what's happening in this album. So that's also
I think that the next album is going to be about the creation of the universe,
essentially,
that,
and the origin of the main antagonist in
this album. Because if you read the story, I mean, the thing is, in the CD version we put out now, because there's only a CD, we haven't put out vinyl yet. In the CD version now, you only get the lyrics, and you don't get the story yet, because there is a story, but you don't. It's just not online yet, and you don't get it in the booklet yet. We're going to save that for later. But in the story, there is, if you read the lyrics, you get, the main gist of the story, but there's more to it. And the main antagonist in the story is a character that will be, featured in part one, which is the next bit. And you're going to see, how Neferet, the demon from the underworld, is a bit like Hades. How he comes to be and how he was created as well at the beginning of time. And this story is much more focused on the human interactions, isn't it? Because this is all about treachery, about love, about a quest for redemption, because that's what this whole album is. It's a quest for redemption. Someone is killed accidentally. Well, accidentally, not, the hand was guided, but the perpetrator didn't do it on purpose. She was under the influence, but that's part of the story. And he dies. He makes a deal with the devil. He comes back, and he has to retrieve something that was taken from the devil in order to get his soul back or to redeem himself. But of course, things go wrong, and then it all ends up, he fights a titan at the end. There's some epic stuff in there.
Yeah, and maybe we should tell the people outside what they have to look for, the title. So, the universe is the Titan Chronicles, right?
The Titan Chronicles, yes.
This is a big story, and the album.
The Titan's also on the cover of the album. That's the Titan, the big guy you see there. We had Estonian artist. I hope I'm saying is it Estonian artist Kuldar Lement draw it for us, which is excellent. He is brilliant. I'm really, because I'm a science fiction fan, and he usually draws science fiction, makes science fiction art. He made that, and the Titan on the front, and you can see the little figure on the cover of the album. That's Lucius. That's Lucius facing this immense Titan, and that's where we got that's where we got the name from. The Titan Chronicles Part 2, Lucius, because it's the Titan Chronicles, the universe, and Lucius is the CD, or the album is about Lucius and his quest for redemption. So that's where it comes from.
Okay, and I've written something that 3 albums are planned. Is it like this, or? So we have
the idea. That's the idea.
The story for
part one.
Yeah, part one is more or less done. Still thinking about in what direction to push part 3, but yeah, the idea would be to sort of go for a trilogy, and then we'll see. It's going to take quite a lot of time to.
Yes, it will. Because if we're going to take the same amount of time for the other 2, wow, we will be in the studio. We will be doing this for a long time. So we don't want to do. I hope the next one, the process for the next one will be more concise and more efficient. I'll put it that way. Let's call it efficient. And it won't take nearly as long to get this the next one put out.
In most cases, the first step is the most difficult. After
yes,
you can go your way.
The first one.
Maybe you have no better idea where you want to go. I think this maybe has been the problem, that you had some cool ideas, but you had to focus them on the first CD, for example. Now.
Yeah, we did put a lot of our ideas that we had. Well, you put a lot of your ideas in this first album, didn't you? In part 2, so that's the advantage of taking your time.
Yeah, sure.
You get to do what you want usually, there are obviously already a lot of ideas for the next album. I think we even already have a rough draft of the cover art already for the next album.
All we need is the music now.
Yeah, all we need is and we have the story. The story is there. All we need now are the songs, is the music. And also, I was just about to say that when you have a debut album, when you have your first album, that's where you set a bar yourself. You set the bar here. I think, again, because I didn't write it, I can say this. I think he set the bar quite high. I think he set the bar here, and it's going to be interesting for us as a band, not just for him as the composer and the writer, but also for us as a band. Are we going to achieve that same level? I hope so. I mean, we're going to endeavor to do so. We're going to do our best to do so. But you're usually judged on that second album, aren't you? Bands always get judged on their sophomore album because they have to prove that that first album wasn't just a fluke, wasn't just a one-off, wasn't just a lucky shot. They have to prove that the quality can be consistent. So I think if this album takes off, and if this album gets the recognition or brings, you know, fame and fortune, not fame and fortune, but, you know, brings attention to us as a band and as a project, I think the all eyes will be on that second album, and everybody's going to ask the same question, you know, is it going to live up to the same expectations? So, but that's for later. We're going to focus on this one now because we've just released it. So,
sure. But it's interesting because as it is concepted as something big, something bigger, you have to think about the forthcoming stuff.
Yeah,
you can't say, okay, we have one album and now we do something completely different. Like maybe other bands that say, okay, we do some our first ideas, do some album. Okay, ideas haven't been that good, other ideas have been good, and now we can focus on the good ones. So you have to concept all in one way.
Yes, yeah. I think we've made a path for ourselves, and we just have to walk it.
Yeah.
I think we can't stray too much from that path, or I don't know what would happen if we did.
Let's find out.
Let's find experimental. Yeah.
Let's put the word experimental in front of the
genre.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah, free jazz. You can make as many mistakes as you want. Yeah, sure.
And maybe we can come back to the story as it is. So you mentioned some parts of the story, but maybe you can give some summary.
So the summary. So the album is 9 songs. The album consists of 9 songs, and they're divided into 3. We have an overture, an introduction. We have an interlude. We have an overture, 3 songs, an interlude, and then another 3 songs, and then we have the final song.
For the Dead and the Undying.
For the Dead and the Undying. That doesn't have any lyrics in, does it? No.
No, it's just the
vocal solo. So the album starts with with an overture, and it's actually an introduction to the story. The choir, not me, the choir sings the introduction to the story, and it gives you the background of an old apotheker, an old doctor driving through the rain in a carriage.
That's actually not in the lyrics.
Is that not in the lyrics? I'm sorry. This is in the story. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm getting confused. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I think the story just sets the scene and explains how the story starts with like Lucius dying, essentially.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's actually the only thing, and it sort of tells you what the story is about.
Yeah.
Imagine a bit like a traveling band and asking people to join you around a campfire and then explaining what kind of story to expect.
But that's what the band is.
It's also in the lyrics of the choir, actually.
I haven't been paying attention. Sorry.
It just tells you that the story is about murder, treason.
Yes, murder, treason, and plot, like Guy Fawkes. No, it's the introduction. Then the first song on the first real song on the album is Neferet. Was our single we released 2 years ago, and it's essentially it's a conversation between Lucius, who has died and went to the underworld, and Neferet, the demon who rules the underworld. And it's a conversation between him and Neferet. And I tried to, as a vocalist, I tried to make the distinction between the 2 characters by using the screams for Neferet and the low grunts, the lower grunts for Lucius. And I tried to do that throughout the whole album as well. I tried to make Lucius sound quite low, my grunt voice, and the narrator, whenever the narrator is telling the story, it's also low grunt. And whenever there's an antagonist or a bad guy, I go for the high screams. So, but that's just a little bit of information there. So Neferet is the conversation between the demon and Lucius. He sends him back up. The second story,
Maybe to give a bit of background on what's preceded that encounter with
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
because maybe still a bit too abstract this way. So essentially, the ruler of the underworld has a pact with mankind, and that pact is also guarded by a set of maintained by a set of artifacts and human sacrifice and so on.
This is the story.
That's
This
the story.
is the story.
Yeah,
It's not.
yeah.
These are not the songs. This is
No,
the
the
story.
story. That's what's actually sort of described more or less in the intro in very few words.
Yeah.
And in a nutshell, Lucius and his sister are actually supposed to be the next human sacrifice to maintain that balance. But there is like the antagonist Servidus, who comes up in one of the later songs, who sort of intervenes, and as a result, the whole sacrifice goes wrong. Lucius's sister runs off with Servidus, and Lucius dies in the process, more or less.
Yeah, and
So
his sister that kills him, right?
Yeah, by accident.
By accident.
And so the pact is broken, and Lucius is sent to the underworld and actually then sent back to set things right and restore the balance within that universe. That's a very short version of the 10 pages of of story behind that whole
the first introduction. I'm Nefret.
No, just the introduction is like.
Well, yeah, but I'm Nefret. He gets sent back. Yeah. And then the second, the third song on the album, the Tower of the Sunshine, which is one of the older ones we were talking about before. We made a video for this, and it hasn't been released yet. And we're going to be
on the final edit.
Yes,
so,
it will be released soon. It will be released soon because you might wonder, what's the point of releasing a video for a single for which that's on an album that's already been released? It tells the story of what happens in that song, and in the video, you actually get more narrative information. You get more about the story than you actually do get just in the lyrics. So for the people who for the fans who want to know more about the story, they need to watch the video for this as well. We put an effort into it. We made it we made a good video, hopefully, because we all do this ourselves. We don't have thousands of euros to spend on companies to make videos for us. We have to do pretty much everything ourselves, and we have to rely on people. Thank God, we have to rely on people who want to help us out of the goodness of their heart for a pittance, because that's the only way we can do this. That's the only way we can bring this together and bring this to life. So the Tower is about an elder. He is the elder of another order in this universe, the order of warriors who are actually tasked to defend the order to which Lucius and Yara, the protagonist, are members of. And in this song, it is revealed that the elder, the leader of this order, of these soldiers, is actually a traitor, and he is a follower of Servidus, the bad guy in the story. And Servidus orders him, and this is something you only see, you don't read it in the lyrics, but you only see in the video. Servidus orders him to set the tower in which, the castle in which they train or which they live, to set it on fire. And this all happens in the video and also happens in the lyrics. And the song ends with the elder himself being cast into the flame as revenge. But that's it's a very, very bloody, very powerful,
which seems to be a recurring theme.
It is a recurring theme. Yeah, it is. And so while all of this is going on, Lucius is still underway. He's on his quest, and it's
essentially a voyage, right? So
it's a quest. It's literally a quest.
So if you look at the songs on the EP we released last year, so it's essentially a quest that starts at Nefret, where he leaves where he grew up, all the way to the temple where the Titan is housed in it's a song, Augured Age of Darkness. That's actually the confrontation with the big antagonist and Titan at the end of the story. So all the songs in between those two on the album is actually the story of a big voyage of Lucius going after his sister and Servidus to try and set things right. With every song being a part of that journey and an event that happened along the way. And so we had then Tower of Virtansha, where they encountered then the elder that turns out to be a traitor. Next one up is Dragonfall.
There was originally we had this long title, didn't we? We had this really long title for this song, and then we just settled on, okay, let's just call it Dragonfall. You remember that? I can't remember what
but for that one is just Prince of Darkness, I think.
Yes, but that was the working title. I thought we had.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I can't. But I think we did. But anyway, because it's one of the longest songs on the album, and it has one of the shorter names. You know, like Neferit, Dragonfall, they're the shortest names on the album, and it's one of the longest because in Dragonfall, it describes the siege of a whole city. How Lucius arrives with his band. With his associates, and basically they're just standing there like the gates of Mordor, like Aragorn standing at the gates of Mordor. He's just standing there, and the story describes how the steward of this city, Dorvu, Iliad Dorvu, sort of just laughs at him and says, you're never getting in here. But of course they do get in. And they find a way at night to sneak in and crawl up the walls. These are literally the lyrics. There's a fight. Lucius kills Dorvu, and then we also what is also revealed in this song is the price Lucius has to pay for his resurrection, which is
essentially an undead, and he needs to feed on human life.
He needs to feed on human life.
And actually, it makes him stronger. So essentially, the rest of the quest is about deciding, like, whether or not he should actually then say indulge in feed on human souls in order to grow stronger and possibly strong enough
to reach his goal.
But
on the other side, he's killing people.
And primarily the people closest to him over time. So
that's it. Which is really interesting because it's kind of universal. If you are faced with a decision like that, as personally, as a human being, if you're faced with you have a task, and this is the price you need to pay to achieve that task, what do you do? Is the task is your goal worth any price, or do you what goes on in your head? How do you deal with choices like that? And that's what essentially that's what the whole album is about. But especially in this song, literally there are lyrics, and the lyrics in the song go, the corpse before him is proof of his sin, skin deep renewal yet rotting within. So it's like you can seem everything can seem fine, and it can seem as though what you're doing and everything is going fine, or everything is going the way it's supposed to be, but it doesn't. It's not always that way.
I think if you look at the story, I mean, you can look at it from different perspectives. Even consider that Lucius is just plain wrong, and Servidus is actually not the bad guy, but actually has a point. So I within the story, I really try to emphasize the grayness of these kinds of sort of the ambiguity of.
Because Servidus thinks he's right, doesn't he? So Servidus believes he/she is correct in what he or she is doing, and that's I think in every great story, the antagonist really truly believes that he is not the bad guy and that he or she is doing the right thing. I think that's what makes a good antagonist. Look at Star Wars. Darth Vader's arc. He's groomed into joining the dark side, and he thinks that's he has a goal. He wants to bring Padme back to life, and that's the reason why he joins the dark side. But in his mind, he's doing the right thing because he has a goal and he wants to achieve that goal. So it's kind of universal, these themes. And it's going to be interesting because, as we said, the story isn't available to the public yet. We're talking about it now.
Figuring it out how to bring that broader universe to life.
Yes, we are, and we would very much like to do that. We tried to do this 2 weeks ago. This was our first attempt. We tried to bring because we're going on a tangent now. We were talking about the songs. We released the album. We're playing a few release shows across Flanders, And one of them 2 weeks ago was here in Deurne in Antwerp, and we performed with a live choir, but we also brought some of the characters from the story to life. We had students from my school do body painting on a male and a female model. The male model wore a mask and we played Neferet. He had this pattern on his chest. You'll see the pictures on our socials. And another model was the actual form of Medena, the antagonist, and Servidius with the antlers. Sigi made that mask, by the way. I just want to point out here. And we want to, we're just trying to figure out how to bring this story to life and how to bring this experience, because that's what we want to do. We want to try and bring this experience to the people standing in the venue. And not just people standing in the venue, people at home opening one of our physical media. They're opening the CD, the booklet to the CD. Maybe next year, hopefully, maybe when we release a vinyl version, they're reading the book in the vinyl version, and they're reading the story as they listen to the music, which would be excellent. As you read the story, you can read the lyrics, and then you can read what's going on at the same time. That would be brilliant. And it's sort of that all-encompassing experience we want to bring to everyone who wants to see it or hear it, or as far as we can. But then back to the story.
I think we're about halfway through.
Halfway through Dragonfall. Yeah, so lots of things happen. The city gets destroyed. Lucius meets an angel, a fallen angel,
which is also a character that will
Asmael.
be exposed.
I think I thought it was an idea to make that the title character of the next album, possibly. So don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. And in the end, I think Lucius gets away. He passes through the city. He gets, he isn't stopped. And the archangel fights one of the demon's generals, Dorgul.
Yeah, like another remnant from the history in that world, sort of wandering around.
Which will also be
part one.
one of the characters for part one.
He has a history with
Asmael, and then we're going to expand on that history in part one in the next album. So that's Dragonfall. Then we have the interlude on the album. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the fifth song. This is the interlude, Her Bride Embrace. And this is an interesting song because it sort of sets itself apart from the rest of the album, doesn't it?
No vocals.
Vocal wise, because we recorded this. It was us, our light guy, the rest of the band, the bassist, our guitar player, friends, other friends, and it's not a sea shanty, but
comes close.
It gets close to what sailors sing on a boat. It's Her Bride. It's called Her Bride Embrace, and it's about it's just putting you back into rowing across a sea or a big lake,
into the eye of a storm.
It reminds me. I mean, Siegfried doesn't listen to Turisas. The Finnish band Turisas. They haven't put anything new out. But I like that band. I used to listen to them a lot during the Nillies, and it reminded me very much of that band. And I told him, but he doesn't know Turisas very well. So it was a bit funny that that it would resemble this band so much. He had never heard. Well, not that he'd never heard of it, but he just
I did listen to it.
Yeah. But there's that. And then when they reach the shore.
Maybe one anecdote about that song.
Yeah.
It used to be, I think, 20% slower and without the rest of the band.
Oh yeah. Was okay.
Yeah, it started off as an instrumental one.
Oh yes.
Like 6 minutes instrumental song, just orchestra.
Yeah.
Orchestra and choir.
Yeah.
And then we ended up speeding it up, and putting drums and guitar in it, and then the whole sea shanty vocals.
Sea shanty vocals, and then choir.
The The Manly Men? Or
The
what do you mean?
Manly Men. Yes, I think it's the way it's credited in the book. It's we're the Manly Men.
Okay. Yeah.
But then it finishes, and by the time the next song starts, we are at the shores of the other side of the sea, or the big lake, or whatever we're crossing. And then we get the Path of No Return. And the Path of No Return is arguably the most prog song on the
Well, that's
album.
one of the last song I actually wrote.
One of the last songs you wrote. So maybe that, if people want to know which direction we're going in for the next album, maybe listen to that one.
Hard to tell.
Yeah, hard to tell. But anyway, it's the only song that features solo male vocals, both male and female. And that, believe it or not, is actually something that was added at the last minute in the studio.
We had ideas to put vocals on there, but we didn't have any. We didn't have any ideas yet, so we asked the producer first to do the male vocals, wrote some lyrics for him, and he just essentially improvised the lead vocal and the harmonies together.
Yeah, which is brilliant. This is one of our two producers. We had when we recorded this, the studio we recorded at was owned by two people, and these two producers, they produced our album. And one of them, this was Tim van Doorn and Bram de Wachter. And Tim, he is essentially a punk rock producer, actually. So he had I don't think he had ever done metal before.
Not this genre, not black metal.
Not black metal, at least.
The heavier stuff, yes, but not.
So he said, oh, I have an idea for this, and let me try this. And a lot of these vocals were his. He does the lead vocal on the let's chorus. Can you call it a chorus?
Yeah.
The first chorus there.
There's no real song structure,
no,
right?
No, we don't. As Siggy said, we don't write pop songs. We don't write easy to digest, easy to listen to, easy listening pop songs. No, it's full on 12 minutes, no repetition whatsoever. You have to keep your head, you have to keep your attention there. It was. He improvised, as he said, he improvised all of these lines, all these harmonies. And he added other stuff to the album as well. There were
some additional the guitar effects in the background. He also played the acoustic guitars.
The acoustic guitars are all his, and Bram, the other producer, he's the main producer actually. He had experience. He actually played additional guitars on all the tracks, so he's actually, you can hear him on all the tracks. He also mixed and mastered the album, so he's actually, basically he's the seventh member of the band. Very important. But yeah, that's how we started, or that's how we ended up making The Path of No Return. So in The Path of No Return, the story goes, Lucius needs to. Well, he needs to kill someone, basically, doesn't he? Because he needs sustenance.
He basically just ends up pretty much murdering everyone that crossed the ocean with him.
Yeah.
This evening. It's and
sounds a bit like Dracula and the
sort of. And I think most of the song is essentially about him. Then the final survivor is the sister of his best friend, and the song is more or less about him chasing her around.
Chasing her to kill her, because this is all literally in the lyrics. And you have on one side, it's like he has two little demons here, because in cartoons you get a good side and a bad side, but he just has two bad sides.
maybe a remnant of his own conscience.
Because on the one side he has Corvus. He's featured in previous songs, but he is sent by Neferet to keep an eye on him.
Essentially talking him into, keeping an eye on him, talking him into things and making sure that he does the job, essentially.
Yeah. And on the other side, he also hears Servidius talking to him. Because Servidius has, he or she can project themselves. They can, astral projection sort of thing, blah, blah, blah. So he's got two voices. He's got his own conscience, but he's also got these two voices banging away at him. And he's just do it. There's no, there's no voice of sanity, no voice of reason inside him, and that's tragic in a way. It's very tragic because there's no one actually looking out for him. They just want him to. He's just a means to an end, basically. And again, something maybe, unfortunately, people can relate to. Unfortunately. But yeah, basically that's what the song is about. Him needing to destroy others so that he can exist and move on and live. That's what it's about. It also ends with a duet. Well, not necessarily ends, but it in the song there is a duet between Lucius and Yara. So that's me and one of our friends, Shura. She sang that, and she's part of the choir as well. She sang that in the studio. And this is one of the songs with a long instrumental break in the middle.
No.
And if you listen to the instrumental break, you might hear the references I mentioned before, namely John Williams.
There's some John Williams in there.
John Williams worship. Yep.
Bonus points for the person that recognizes
which soundtracks are mentioned. Bonus points. If you get them right, you make it a CD. Yeah, so that's that. That's the Path of No Return. Then we get Augur, the Age of Darkness, which was our second single. We also made a video clip for this, and that is, I think, the most straightforward song on the album. It's a long song,
yeah,
but it is the most. Structure-wise, it's the most straightforward song. No?
There's also not a lot of repetition. It
sounds. The thing is, it's not real repetition in the sense that if this bit gets repeated here, but it's a semitone higher, or the lyrics get changed a little bit. But Augur is one of the songs that has the most bits in that sound like repetition.
I'm not sure.
I think that this is my opinion.
Okay,
this is my opinion. Okay. So it's also the most straightforward black metal song. It has quite fast blast beats in it. This is the song that people would think, oh yes, this is the song that leans mostly towards Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth or something like that, or Septic Flesh or whatever, or Fresh Guard. That if anything, that's this song, isn't it?
Possibly. I think it's more straightforward than the other ones in terms of like the song structure is
yeah, it's still not
no.
pop
But I think it's just generally more straightforward. Also in melodies and riffs, it's I think there's less exotic stuff happening, and that may be why it sounds more straightforward than the other tracks.
Yeah, that's it.
It relies less on let's say if Prince of Darkness is primarily the symphonic one. Sorry, that's working title, Dragonfall. So if Dragonfall is sort of starts mainly from the symphonic part, and I think Augur is then with the counterpart. Well, not part. Also, bonus points for the person that finds the Jurassic Park reference in Augur: The Age of Darkness.
Okay.
We want timestamps. Give us timestamps.
So I think where Dragonfall heavily relies on the orchestra heavily relies on the orchestra and has that as sort of the starting point. I think Augur: The Age of Darkness starts much more from the guitar basis, let's say, and is more aimed at riffs and the rhythmical aspect rather than the very elaborate orchestration.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Now, in terms of the lyrics, the story is, as Siki mentioned before, this is sort of the end of the arc. Lucius arrives at the temple in which the Titan is kept, the huge giant, as I said on the cover. And it's basically a conversation between Lucius and Servidius, the antagonist. So it's protagonist, antagonist, having a conversation of each other, and they're trying to convince. I don't know if it's convince. They're trying to convince each other basically who's in the right. Yeah. They're trying to find reasons why they are the way to go. It's actually they're talking to each other, but actually they're talking to everyone who can listen, who can hear them. And
Servidus also adds in the lyrics as well, literally indicates that he's no different than Lucius in that sense. It's just essentially a matter of perspective.
Different perspective, yeah.
And of course, also pointing at Lucius's wrongdoings to get to that point into the story about all the murder to get there and to try and achieve his objective.
Again, it's about what lengths would you go to achieve your goal. You know, they've both murdered, they've both killed people. You know, what it
technically Servidus didn't really kill that much, I think.
Well,
the tower, sorry, forget about the tower. Right.
Yeah, the tower, and he made sure that Lucius was killed in the first place.
Yeah,
that's his doing. That's his doing under his influence.
Not sure who has the highest body count though. It's
probably Lucius then. Yeah. Probably Lucius then. But if you look at it that way, pure, you know, cause and effect, then that would be Lucius then.
So then maybe the Titan as a story item. So essentially, Titan also fits within that overarching universe, and it's essentially the let's say the safeguard. Should the pact ever be broken from Neferet's side, essentially. So it's sort of the only. It's not really a creature; it's sort of an automaton.
Yeah.
That can be powered by human souls, but you need like thousands of them to activate it. But essentially,
the Titan will feature in the next album.
But so essentially, the Titan is there to save mankind, and Servidus just tries to take over the Titan so he can actually use it to defeat Neferet, and
but
also sort of canceling out the pact, but through different
yeah, that's true. I think that's in the story, by the way. This isn't literally in the lyrics.
We need to really bring the story.
Yeah, we need to really release the story.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah. The lyric and again the lyrics. I tried to do the same thing as with Neferet. I went really low, the low grunts for Lucius, and I went for the high screams for Servidus, for the bad guy, and you can hear that if you read the lyrics, and you'll hear who is saying what. Yeah, and then for the last two songs we have Corruption.
Yeah. So essentially, after Lucius manages to defeat
somehow.
It's in the story. It's not in the lyrics. Actually, the big fight is not in the epic 12-minute song. It's actually just about the dialogue between. So yeah, he defeats the Titan as well as Servidus. Of course, managed to take hold of that Titan, but then of course, and then of course comes sort of the consequences of what he did. So one thing is that Lucius knows that he also through some of the artifacts that he managed to recover, feels that he has an enormous amount of power and actually could try to change the world in different ways by making use of those powers, or just give up and wither away. So there's that dilemma from his side. On the other side, there's also then the encounter between him and his best friends, who found out that in the meantime he killed his sister. And so there's the confrontation between those, and essentially again a perspective where people point Lucius to the insanity and of the deeds that he did to get to that point. Essentially, like, okay, you succeeded, but at what cost?
Yeah. Again, it's a recurring theme, as I said.
And in that final confrontation, we go full circle, but this time it's then Lucius's sister who was then saved, who accidentally, by intervening in that confrontation between him and his best friend, actually she gets killed in the end of the story. And that's sort of where that arch closes before we enter into the epilogue, where Lucius is essentially locked away for eternity, guarding the
Soul Stone.
Yeah, essentially the soul gem and the portal to the underworld, making sure that the balance never gets broken again, let's say.
Yeah. So it's I think it's people who have seen the second season of Loki. Did you see the second season of Loki?
Yes.
Where he becomes,
yeah. It's sort of that, like sort of keeper of, like there's more of the keeper of time.
yeah, in
Lucius here is just guarding essentially the gate to the underworld to make sure that the balance is maintained and souls properly pass back and forth.
So if we do see Lucius again, it won't be until the third installment.
In the last sentence of the story, the door opens again. So after thousands of years, so who knows what happens?
Who knows?
So yeah, so there's there's a lot and probably too much to explain in I don't know how long we've been talking.
Yeah,
sorry,
I think
half an hour.
A lot of stuff going on.
So yeah, look out for additional media and content being distributed where we.
We are being told to be more quiet by my wife because she can hear us all the way downstairs.
Okay. that's when you get excited telling stuff.
Oh crap. Okay.
Yeah, but I think we'll come to an end slowly now because this was lots of stuff. It was, I think, the longest part in an interview ever where I didn't have to ask anything.
Well, you did ask. You did ask us.
Yeah, it was cool. It's totally interesting to see how it developed, and I have to say now I understand why it took so long to come from first ideas to.
And this was the short form of this. Full of detail, actually.
That's what I mean. When I see what's behind this, and behind this, even a small story, as you told, probably.
It's essentially you're just looking at very small fragments of that entire story arc, essentially. So it's there's a lot more that we'll have to put out there for people to understand what each individual song.
But the thing is, what I like about this project is people can enjoy the layers which they want to enjoy. You know, if you just want fast music or you just want melodies, you just want music that sounds good, fine, you have that. That's on the album. If you want proggy stuff, you know, like solos and technical stuff, sure, that's also on the album. If you want a storyline, that's also on the album. If you want different kinds of vocal styles, not always just the same thing, like, you know, like let's say, I don't know, like Cannibal Corpse, it's always the same, you know, vocal style. If you want different vocal styles, that's also on the album. See, you can take away from this album what you want, and I like that personally because I like watching or listening to content that has that. That's also why I like to listen to prog metal. It has that variation. It has that, you know, it has the different aspects to it. You know, like if you have an Arion album, you know Arion? Yeah. So he writes these elaborate concept albums as well. You can just enjoy one song. You can just take a song and you enjoy that because it's beautifully made. You can enjoy the vocals of, I don't know, let's say Hansi Kosch or Anneke van Giersbergen or Damien Wilson or whatever. I'd like to think we offer a similar experience to the listener. You know, if you want to enjoy it that way, you can enjoy it that way. If you want to listen to the whole album from start to finish, by all means, be our guest. If you want to listen to the whole album start to finish and read the lyrics, if you want to read the lyrics and the story, you know, go for it. But we'd like to offer that to the people and they make their own decision as to how they want to enjoy it themselves.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like with most epic universes, like from Tolkien to Star Wars, you can say, okay, I focus on one film, for example, or on one trilogy, and it's enough. Or you can go and read all the books that have ever been published or comics or stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone has his or her own way to discover, but you offer.
Yeah. We at least we offer something, you know, here. If you want to do this, this is it.
Yeah.
A lot of time and energy was spent and was put into this and will be spent and put into the future installments of this trilogy and maybe, you know, whatever comes next. And we don't expect people to understand and read everything or listen to everything we put out. But if you want to, you can. And if you do, you will realize that, you know, it's all intertwined and it's all connected, and characters from one story will feature in another story, and you see this character arc and this character arc and themes, you know, oh, this theme is there, and in the next album they deal with other themes and stuff like that. It's just the richness, you know, and you know, the saying goes, variety is the spice of life. Well, then we'd like to spice up your life.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's
all that intended with a stupid pun.
The stupid a Spice Girls pun.
you're the Spice Boys.
Uh,
Okay, so I think
I think that's referred to as an anticlimax.
yes.
I think we will cut here now, come to an end. And but I can promise to you, or I can promise you, we'll talk about this more often and see what happens next album or in between,
Definitely,
how it develops.
definitely.
So we
Maybe
can,
next time we talk Opti, we will have the vinyl version ready. Maybe
for
next year.
example,
Who knows? And the story will be featured in that. So, or at least a version of the
So
story.
you have the exclusive the first time we
yeah.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see about that. I'm not making any promises, but we'll see.
Oh, but this is actually exclusive of the story. We haven't.
No, this is actually the first time we've talked about the story with anyone. So you are actually the first one we've talked about this before.
I'm blessed.
Yeah,
cool.
Should feel so.
And people outside will be blessed too, because they are the second ones now.
Yep.
Everyone who watches this, so
Yep. So German bookers,
yeah, come book this band. For today, I would say thank you. It was really, really interesting, and we will meet and talk again.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and for the people outside, ARTEFACTS is the name of the band. Check them out. Rather new somehow, but still growing, and will be somewhere big in, I think, 2 years latest.
Let us hope so. Definitely.
Headlining Wacken, open air, and something.
Wow. I think add a few more years to that, then maybe.
Maybe. Okay, but it's really, to be honest, it's really cool. The album is cool, and I think people have to listen to you. Come to the shows that are coming. And for today, I would say bye bye, cheers, see ya.
See you next time, Otti. Take care. Tschüss.
Tschüss.